You're listening to the Optimal Performance Podcast. The OPP is brought to you by Natural Stacks, makers of 100% natural and open source supplements designed to help you live optimal. For more information on how to build optimal mental and physical performance into your life, go to naturalstacks.com.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Optimal Performance Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You know, it's been a pretty cool year. 2018 has been packed with lots of great episodes, and this one's a little bit different. You know, it's my goal to have guests on who are experts in their field, authors, doctors, researchers, etc. And one thing that I am coming to realize is that for the everyday person, there are lots of tools and techniques around goal setting, around intention setting, and around performance that don't have anything to do with a book or a dietary theory or an exercise technique. That there is a massive part of performance that's underserved when it comes to mental frameworks, goal setting, and those sorts of things. And so that's what I've done. Today's episode, I am actually the guest, and I've brought in my friend Adam Banning, who's been in the field of integrated medicine for a very long time, and he's a coach also. He does some really cool work in his field, and I brought him in because I wanted him to interview me, because I have a ton of effective tools that I work with my coaching clients on, goals around or techniques around goal setting, categorizing your goals. I have a to-do list that I explain in this episode that is phenomenal. If you don't take any other point away from this episode, the 6-item to-do list can be a massive, massive game changer for you guys in 2019. It's really simple, and I explain it. You know, we talk about the difference between working backwards from goals and working toward them. We talk about decision making and some techniques that you can use immediately to help hack the decision-making process. We talk about automatic negative thoughts and how you can reverse these sort of inbuilt subconscious mental frameworks that actually slow you down. And we all do it. And it just takes a little bit of work to identify when you're doing that and make sure that the next time that you face a challenge, you're not, hamstringing yourself before you even get started. So this one's a little bit different, and I'm really excited for it because this sort of gives you an idea of how I do my coaching practice and how I've been effective for some of my clients over these past couple of years. And it's really, I want to reiterate, it's really an honor to be able to host this podcast. It is so fun getting these guests. We have some amazing guests scheduled for 2019, and I'm super stoked. As always, please send us an email, send me an email, give us a review if you like it, share this stuff. I suggest that you be ready to take some notes in this podcast, because this episode is packed with different techniques and tools that you can use specifically around getting what you want in 2019, a lot about goal setting. And so if you're ready to take some notes on your phone, you're going to be able to use this stuff right away. I've been mentioning this on each podcast recently, but if you want inspiration from me every single morning, email me your phone number. No strings attached. No, it's free. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask for anything. I'm not going to call you. But if you want some biohacks, some mental hacks, some spirit hacks, and some other sort of inspiration in the morning via text message, send me an email. Sean, SEAN, at naturalstacks.com, and send me your phone number, and I'll send you a text message every morning. I'm going to probably roll that out in a week or two. And then also head to my website, SeanMcCormick.com, SeanMcCormick.com, and that's where all my coaching stuff is. This is going to be a big year for me and a big year for Natural Stacks. Natural Stacks has some cool products coming out, if you don't know about them already. One in particular that I'm really excited about. And that's it. I'll stop rambling. I'll let you guys get into the podcast. As always, you may want to listen to this at a faster speed so that you can gain as much information in as short amount of time as possible. Thank you again. Here's to a phenomenal 2018, And without further ado, Sean McCormick.
You're listening to the Optimal Performance Podcast, and I'm your host, Sean McCormick. It's the OPP. I'm a performance coach, a wellness entrepreneur, a blogger, a speaker, a biohacker, and it's my privilege to bring to you the leading experts in the field of performance. So let's dig right in.
And we're here with Adam Banning, who is a close personal friend and also a mentor of mine. He has decades of experience in integrative medicine, a published author, and today he'll be running the show. And I like to let our guests, or in this case, our hosts, introduce themselves. So Adam, please tell everybody who you are and what we're doing today.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun today. We've got 2019 coming up, and we're going to share a lot of great technology as it relates to really making your manifestations happen in this upcoming year. So I'm really excited. A little bit about me. I'm a published author of 2 self-help books, a radio show host in Los Angeles and New York City, over 25 years of experience in the field of functional medicine, being taught by some of the top people in the field, even the father of functional medicine himself, Dr. Jeffrey Bland. But today is all about goals, and we're spinning the tables on you today, Sean. We're putting you in the hot seat. I'll be asking the questions, and there's so much great stuff you do with your clients in your coaching practice that I felt it was so important to start asking you questions about this so you could share it with the audience and people can really ground their plans, their resolutions for 2019 into reality with some of these amazing approaches. But why don't we start out first of all, Sean? Why are goals so important?
Yeah, this is the perfect time to start talking about goals. It's the beginning of a new year, and this is where everybody either makes a New Year's resolution or decides I'm going to get fit or quit smoking, and they set out these goals, and it's critical. When you talk to people who have had success in their life, it's because they know where they're going. It's because they have identified at some point in their path that they want certain things. They want to live a certain life. And with my education and experience and practical experience as a life coach and performance coach, I'm a big goal setter myself. I think it's both timely and important to kind of walk people through this. And this is, this podcast is going to be a little bit different, obviously, because you're interviewing me.
Yep.
But I want everybody to grab a notebook and take some of these notes because there's going to be a lot of frameworks. There's going to be some explanations and some tools that everyone can use from the get-go right now to kickstart their year. And we all know what goals are, but if they're not crafted in a way that's relevant and applicable to us as individuals, then there's no path forward. And so, whether they're small goals or big, audacious goals, they're critical to the trajectory and how you spend your day to day.
It's so interesting. You also speak about pardon me, you speak about this concept of SMART goals. You always talk about you got to make your goals SMART. Can you talk about this acronym SMART?
Yeah. I think a lot of people probably are familiar with SMART goals, and because our listeners are, I like to talk about the people who listen to this podcast as people who like to do good work, focused on bettering themselves, on working smart. And this is exactly what this means. So SMART goals are, it's an acronym, and it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And we can kind of parse each of these out. And Adam, I welcome you to kind of jump in and piggyback if I've left anything out, but we need to be as specific as we can possibly be in our goal setting. So if it's 10 pounds, it's 10 pounds. If it's $100,000 a year, it's $100,000 a year. You have to be specific because otherwise you don't know when you've achieved that goal. You're not sure if you're there yet. So being as specific as you can with the goals that you have is critical. The other, obviously measurable, you have to have some metrics for determining what the elements of these goals are that you're creating for yourself. How can you measure? Well, obviously you can measure 10 pounds on a scale. You can measure your income with a pay stub. For other goals they're a little bit harder, which is the cool, juicy stuff that I love, is how do you measure better stress management? How do you measure your sleep? And for some of these goals, for a lot of the listeners, I think that are going to be interested in this is through biohacking tech. So if you have an Oura ring to measure, or a pedometer to measure, if you want to get whatever, I don't even know what the thing is, maybe it's 20,000 steps in a day, you can measure that with a pedometer. So finding the right ways to measure your goals, or to measure your performance on the way to that goal, is really important. Achievable. This one's tricky because I come from the frame of mind that anything is achievable. And you can be whoever you want to be in this world. You really should be ambitious with the goals that you set out, but they should be achievable. If you're 55 and you've never been in an airplane, you're probably not going to be an astronaut. So maybe cross that one off the list. But if you are, if you're clear on what is actually possible, what is achievable for you, that's where the A comes in, SMART. And then relevant. Relevant is relevant to you. Are they important to you? Are they going to enrich your life? Are these things important in bringing you the outcome that you want in your life? And that's going to be, I think, different for everybody in whatever the field you're in, and whatever. And we're going to talk into the different types of goals, the different categories of goals, but it has to be relevant to you, because if it's not relevant to you, it's not going to be important, and it will fall off your priority list. And then time bound, this kind of goes back to measurable, is there should be a time that you allow yourself to achieve this goal. And I think that I speak for, and Adam, I'm sure you're used to this too, is I think that a lot of us underestimate how quickly we can do the things that we want to do, because we love wasting time, myself included. I love wasting time. But if you are specific about when you want to achieve this goal, by when, then it's clear. Like, okay, the clock is ticking. I want to lose 10 pounds in a month. How are you going to do that? So having that time-bound thing, it actually shows you, if you didn't achieve the goal, if you didn't get to the place that you wanted to be, then you can reassess within the time allotted. The other thing, I could keep going. So that's SMART goals. That's a common acronym, especially in my world as a life coach and performance coach. It's a really common theme. And if you want to do a little bit more research on SMART goals, I invite you to go check out. There's lots of different resources, from Jack Canfield to lots of other sort of personal development folks out there. So hopefully that cleared it up.
Well, also another thing, Sean, is, and I really want to stretch this out and give a challenge to your audience. Okay. There are so many bits of technology that we know about out there. We go, oh yeah, I heard of SMART goals. Oh, I heard of this. Oh, I heard of that. But how much are we actually making application in our life of these things? We know it's not good to eat processed foods, but sometimes we end up in places where we do eat them, at a party, at a bar, whatever. There's so many different things that we know are good for us. So what I really implore your audience to be able to do right now, and your listeners to do right now, is to say, yeah, I may know what a SMART goal is, but am I doing it? Am I writing down the notes right now? Am I going to have a plan? Is it going to be effective? And this specific podcast is all about technologies to really, really hack into that. You speak about like this thing called an effective goal framework, and your favorites in this area. What do you mean by an effective goal framework?
Well, there's lots of different ways to set goals, and if you talk to someone in sales, they're going to have different goal frameworks than someone who's in another field. And I think it's important to just at least give everyone a couple of different goal frameworks that they can operate from. But even before we dig into these different categories and these different goal setting frameworks, and I have a favorite, and I'll definitely tell everybody, if you haven't grabbed a notebook yet, grab your notebook, pause this, we'll wait, go grab your notebook and a pencil or pen and write some of this stuff down, because and let me make another appeal. This is all well and good. They're going to have a ton of awesome content within this podcast, but it doesn't mean a damn thing unless you write it down. It really doesn't. And I think that a lot of us, as we zoom out a little bit, a lot of us love consuming content. We love YouTube videos and podcasts. We love resources and books. But it's something different to actually activate on this stuff rather than intellectualize these technologies, these frameworks, because the things that get measured get actionable. And if you're not measuring anything, if you're not writing this stuff down, then it's just a tiptoe through the tulips with some good information with a couple of nice guys, and it's not going to activate for you. So before I jump into the different goal frameworks, I think that it's important, again, to zoom out again about asking yourself why. Why is this goal, why are these goals important in your life? What will you get from it? I think it's important to keep in mind what we want our outcomes to be. And I'll say that again. What we want our outcomes to be. When we want to improve, why do we want to improve? Why do we want to be 10 pounds lighter? Why do we want more money? What will we do with it? When we begin to clarify the motivations around the goals that we set, we identify what's important to us. And I've done this in my entrepreneurial life with my float centers. I've done this with my coaching business. I've done this with this podcast specifically. Is why do I want to do this? What's the thing that I want to get by achieving this goal? And so one thing that everyone can do is, as they're making these goals, ask themselves, why is this important to me? What will I get? What result will I get if I do X? So, do you have anything to add to that, Adam?
I also think there's another factor. Everybody always looks at this thing called ROI, return on investment. But I'd like everybody in the audience to think about another term, COI, cost of inaction. It brings me back to A Christmas Carol, the old movie and the book, where at the end of it, Scrooge finds himself with the ghost of Christmas future, where he didn't make any changes and he stayed as Scrooge. And he finally took a look at his funeral and his deathbed, and no one was there for him. No one cared. He died a man without any form of hope and any form of redemption. We don't want to find ourselves burying our dreams and never realizing them. So what is your cost of inaction? What is your cost of not taking action right now to be able to put some of these concepts, which are well-defined concepts, and some of them which are truly unique that, Sean, you're going to be presenting? What is your cost of inaction of not enacting them? What is the cost to you in joy, in abundance, in a feeling of pride, and an ability to be a mentor for others and an inspiration for others? Think of COI as well as ROI. I think that's important.
I love that. I think it gets to the, we don't want to have regrets. The cost of inaction may cheat you from living the life that you want. And I think there are certain cultural pressures that we have either from the external toward us or internal frameworks and frames of mind that keep us small, that keep us from doing the things that we really want to do. And if nothing else, in this podcast, I want everybody to really, especially now at the beginning of 2019, when so much is possible in the world, is to really go after stuff. I love that. That's great. Thank you for adding that.
Also another thing here is I've worked with many different top doctors around the country and around the world in creating books, lecture series, branding, so on and so forth. And one of the statements that I had heard from a client of mine, a doctor in Chicago, a well-known doctor with a well-known radio show, he said that complete life is made up of complete days. Okay. And complete days really need to be able to have order to them. I remember there was this one, a general who got up and spoke, and I saw this on both YouTube and Facebook, and he said, start your day out with making your bed. It's almost like there's these to-do lists which play a really important role. You've got this concept that you work with clients. It's the 6-item to-do list. Can you tell the audience about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 6-item to-do list is really the how to get the what. The 6-item to-do list is an effective tool that I've been using for a while. But before we jump into that, I want to talk about the different categories of goal setting that you can make in your life. Because again, like the how you do what you do to the end, to what end is important. But here's 7 different categories. Again, take notes. Here's 7 categories that you can think of for crafting your goals, and you can have lots of them. These are just 7. So 1 is a financial goal. That's pretty obvious, and now with opportunities to create side hustles and create revenue online, financial goals is just one category that you can dive into. The other, number 2, is career and business goals. Whether you're a business owner or not, if you can define where you want to be in your career, and if you apply that SMART goal framework to each of these, you can be really clear on where you want your career to go. Number 3 is free time or family time. This one, I think, of all of the goals, especially you can imagine on the Optimal Performance podcast. Last week we had Dan Doty from Everyman on the podcast, and he talked about living an enriched life through emotional intelligence, and this goal kind of plays into that, because you can be successful, grinding, big shot. But if you don't have any downtime and you're neglecting your family, like that, you can make a goal. And sometimes that can be as simple as scheduling time on your calendar and your family calendar for free time or family time where you can actually be present. Number 4 is health or appearance goals. And there's lots of different ways to measure your health. I would suggest everybody, if you can afford it, if it makes sense to you, go get your blood work done to figure out where you're at. Measure where you're at, your height. Your height probably doesn't change much, but your weight and your blood work. Maybe even measure your waist to figure out what you want where you want your health to be and what you want your appearance to be, because you look good, you feel good, you perform well. Number 5 is relationship goals. This is obviously going to, whether you want to get married or if you want to just strengthen the relationship you're in, define what that looks like. Define specifically what a quality relationship is for you, because it's different for everybody. Number 6 is personal growth. Now, for personal growth, that's a little bit mercurial. It can change, and it can look a lot of different ways. But as far as personal growth is concerned, for a lot of my clients, and I think for a lot of people listening, is how are you growing yourself? And maybe this means reading more resources. If you want to start reading some personal development stuff, some new thought stuff. If you want to hire a life coach like myself to help you determine what you want personally and how you want to grow as a person, that's number 6. And then number 7 is making a difference. This is really, really important. When we can make goals for ourselves, but I think it's also important to be of service. It's also important to try to make a difference in this world. And you'll find that when you are making a difference in the world, in your community, through organizations, your university, whatever sort of volunteering opportunities that there are, you'll find that when you give of yourself to others, it comes back to you tenfold. So having a goal around making a difference, whatever that means to you, is also really important and really sort of is a nice capstone to these 7 categories. Adam, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, I'm dying to hear your favorite, but I want to add one thing. Time for joy. Time for joy. Now, it's not personal self-improvement. It's something that many times we look at and go, I got stuff to do. I'm not going to make a priority for that. There's so many other things in my life that need to get done. But I want your listeners and the people out there to be able to understand that joy is the fuel in your gas tank. And life is a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to make sure you fuel up and change your oil. And fueling up and changing your oil is time for joy. And schedule it in. If it means going to a comedy club, go there and laugh your butt off. Okay? But schedule it in. Make sure there's time for you on your schedule.
Yeah. There's that reoccurring theme of scheduling it. This is something that I've been working on even more, with a weekly podcast and 10 coaching clients and speaking gigs and seminars and stuff that I do. I would be a total mess if I didn't schedule this stuff out. And I do. I schedule date nights with my wife. I schedule time for myself to go, you're right, charge my batteries up with joy. That's excellent. So, yeah. So
what's your favorite? Come on.
Well, so those were sort of the different types of goals, but this is my favorite tool to achieve those goals. This has been wildly effective for me and wildly effective for my clients. We all have to-do lists. We all have ways that we get stuff done. And what I've found is this 6-item to-do list to be massively effective. So it goes like this. It's a 6-day goal, a 6-week goal, a 6-month goal, and a 6-year goal. And the reason, I jumped out of, that's different than the 6. Apparently 6 is the big number today. So I'll back up. Sorry about that. So that is not the how. That is one of the goals. So within those 7 categories, or if you have more, or if you just want if you want to focus on one, put it in a time frame. The time-bound element of the SMART goal. Those are great time-bound mechanisms for achieving the goals that you have. This for me has been really effective because in 6 days I can do a lot. And 6 weeks, a month and a half to check something large off my list, create something, write something, get more in touch with my partner, take a small trip. At the end of these different increments, at the end of the 6 days, you can look back and say, okay, did I get better these in this almost week? How about in 6 weeks? And then 6 months, and then 6 years. And the 6-year one should push you a little bit, obviously, because you're going to be a different person in 6 years. But as far as like the time-bound element of SMART goals, putting it in those different increments make it achievable, and within your frame of reference, you can see it, you can feel it, you can understand how long those periods of time are. So that's my favorite way to do it, and I revisit that a lot.
That is really great. These goals, they're very, very interesting. A lot of people have a lot of different ways to reach a goal. came up with an interesting concept, and you work with your clients with this quite effectively. And you mentioned it to me just a little bit, and for some reason we didn't have enough time to get into it fully. And I was like, I want to hear more about that. You speak about working backwards from a goal or working forwards toward it. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so this kind of takes there's a couple of different angles at which you can operate toward your goal, and for some folks, like the Tim Ferrisses of the world, is to make a large goal, set a large goal out in the distance somewhere that you can work toward, and then once you know what your goal is, you can use deductive logic to say, okay, if I want to start a podcast. If I want to start a podcast and that's my goal, then what is the next thing that I would need to do in order to achieve that goal? Well, you'd have to buy a microphone. You'd have to research how to do a podcast. You'll have to work backwards from the end result that you want and unpack it in a way where you can execute on these different things. So, that is one framework toward achieving your goal. And the other is the opposite. It's the inverse, which is to get, if you haven't made goals in a while, if you haven't written them down, you can start small and say, okay, I need to get my body right. I need to get my mind right. I need to get my spirit and my work all dialed in. And once I can do that, then the path forward will become more clear. And so making smaller goals that are about optimizing your life and all the different parts of you on a path toward a greater goal. I want to start a podcast, but before I start a podcast, I've got to make sure that I've got enough time for that. So I'm going to structure my time in a way that makes sense. I'm going to need to, I'm going to make sure that I am fully present, that I have enough time and bandwidth and creativity to start a podcast. And working toward that goal from now going forward rather than the result coming backward. And my most favorite mechanism for achieving these goals is through this to-do list. And this to-do list is so effective. It's crazy effective. And again, if you're not taking notes, if you're driving, just come back to this later. But the 6-item to-do list is pretty crucial. So here's how it works. So you make every single day before you start the next day. So this 6-item to-do list is made in the evening time or at the end of your workday, and you write no more, no less 6 items that you need to do. And within those 6 items, you prioritize them from number 1 to number 6. As you wake up in the morning, you have that 6-item to-do list ready for you, ready to start your day so that you don't wake up and say, "Ooh, what am I going to work on today?" Or "What do I have to get done?" It's right there. It's on the list. Number 1 on your 6-item to-do list is the thing that you do first, right? Duh. You don't move on to number 2 until number 1 is finished. So you'll do the first thing on the list, you'll get it done, you'll move to the second one. Maybe in one day, you actually get through 3 of the things, maybe 4 of the things. And then once those are done, you cross them off your list. Then, and the key thing is, you don't move on to the next item on the to-do list until the one previous is finished. Because number 1, number 2, and number 3 are more important and will likely impact the other items on your to-do list immediately. So at the end of the day, at the end of your workday, as you're recompiling your 6 items on your to-do list, you re-rank them. And what you'll find is as you focus on one thing till completion, till it's done, you'll find that that thing affects all of the other things on your to-do list. It's sort of the 80-20 rule. And if you're doing the most effective task completions, then the other things will follow along behind it. And at the end of the day, you re-rank them. So at the end of the workday, cool, I got 1 through 3 done. Now 4, 5, and 6 go to the top of the list. Oh, but there's one other thing I needed to add. Okay, so I'll add that. Where does this thing go? Okay, this thing is important. This goes to number 2. what you'll find over a very short period of time, usually it takes just a couple of days, you'll find that there are 2 or 3 things on your to-do list that you never get to. They're just not important. They hang around at number 5 and number 6 on your to-do list. That should be a signal to you that those things are not important, or at least less important than the other things that are sort of turning the wheel for you. And so every single day you reorganize, you relist in order of importance the 1 through 6, and then as soon as you wake up in the morning, you've got like an action plan. And this is such a simple thing, but I've seen it work with dozens and dozens of my clients, and it works for myself as too. Adam, do you like it?
I think it's really marvelous because it works in 2 areas. Not only does it help people get stuff done, but it helps them with one of the biggest problems that we have out there and the biggest reasons why we waste time. It helps with truly understanding how to prioritize.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big one. This is really all great information. It really brings up a point for me inside my mind, and maybe within your listeners as well, that there's lots of great information out there, but it was pointed out, I believe, by Aristotle that no great thing will ever be created, he said, by man in those days, and I don't want to be male chauvinist, by the human race by a single individual. It's usually a team that does things, and so few people out there ask for help, ask for support, or look for support. I'm a big fan of finding a mentor, finding a coach, creating your success team. Can you talk about like coaching and the importance of coaching for a second here in regards to being able to take all these great things and make them happen in people's lives?
Yeah. Most of us don't know what we're doing. I mean, we don't.
I've had moments like that.
Right. I mean, it's not a skill that we're taught. We're not educated at any level in our education on how to nourish ourselves and how to execute on things that are important to us. We learn to memorize and regurgitate, and when we know, like, okay, it's time for me to grow. I want to get better. I want to improve my life. I want this result in my life. Sometimes we ask for help from others that are not necessarily qualified to help. And this is not a popular notion because yeah, your best friend is a great person. They're there for you. They're wonderful. They're a great listener, hopefully. But your best friend is not qualified like a life coach is. Your best friend knows you, but also has a narrative around you, around who you are and around who they think you are because of past history. They don't necessarily see you in your greatest light, in achieving your dreams and being your best self. And so the power of like this, for example, this podcast is a massive resource for people, and it spans lots of different topics as far as performance, nutrition, nootropics, framework. It's an excellent resource, but that's all it is. It's a resource. It's not a person who is trained and successful in getting people the results that they want in their life. And so when you hire a human being to help you, a mentor, a coach, an advisor, a confidant, someone who is further down the path than you are, not that far, but maybe even sometimes just a little further down the path on living the type of life that you want to live, whatever that means for you. When you work with someone who will help keep you accountable, a podcast cannot keep you accountable. The Power of Now cannot keep you accountable. These resources are inspirational and intellectualized, but working with a coach, working with just the same way that you would work with a personal trainer at a gym, they're going to know and identify where your weak spots are, and they're going to help you work on those so that you can get exactly the results that you need. And it's Adam, it's such fun work. I love it because when I see someone who their life is pretty good, they're pretty dialed, they're pretty motivated, and they're pretty happy, but they're not where they want to be able to help them make goals, help them execute on their goals, and actually step forward into the person that they didn't even know that they could be. That like they didn't realize how quickly their dreams could come true, but it's through these technologies and through these frameworks and through a person like myself to help them think clearly and act clearly.
I think that those are really important points. One thing I'd like to bring up, though, is I have walked into the gym way too many times, and I've seen people working out with a personal trainer who is overweight and is on his phone checking out the latest memes and so on and so forth while he's telling this person to do 50 push-ups. I think it's really important to be able to, when you select your team, to really look at it like you were hiring somebody really important in your life, like you were hiring a CEO to the company of your life, okay? And you want to be able to see individuals who have a proven record. When you and I sat down and you told me a bit more about your background and the diversity of things that you've done and been successful with, I said, my goodness, you are just quite the coach. Because and I'm not saying this just to blow you up and blow smoke up with your whatever, but the bottom line on the whole thing is there's two things to consider. A, is the coach that you're picking for whatever part of your life, is that coach successful and proven to be successful? You want to check the references, okay? The second thing you want to be able to do is you don't want a coach that just handles one area when it comes to your life. It's so interesting. They have this thing called life coaches. Does a life coach, is your life just your brain? No. Is your life just your body? No. Is your life just your career? No. You want a life coach who has success in business. If you're trying to build a business or you want a better career, you want a life coach who has success in the area of biohacking. Because let me tell you something, if you as an individual find yourself in a state where you just feel like garbage, you're not going to be successful, okay? You want to find a coach who's successful in the area of truly becoming spiritually balanced. Because if you're standing there and you may have a good relationship with your wife or your girlfriend and you have a great job, but you feel like there's something larger and you can't access it, okay? You have no spiritual balance. You want a coach that has a good spiritual practice themselves, a proven track record with it. So really, it's important to have this team, but it's important for you to do your due diligence and checking the backgrounds of individuals to make sure they're successful in those areas. I see way too many life coaches and different forms of coaches who coach people on business when they haven't had no business successes in their lives whatsoever.
Yes. You're absolutely right. Finding a life coach or a business coach that actually has had successes in their life is not very common. And it's this sort of, I really want to help people. I really want to help them grow. I really want to be of service and help people be their best selves. I'll figure myself out later. It's an element of the coaching world that sometimes folks who haven't really, and this isn't, I don't mean to be demeaning, but people who haven't done much or haven't achieved much or are not very well rounded go into coaching because they really do want to help people, but they don't really have the experience and the track record that will help them actually be effective. So yeah, no, I think that's an excellent point. And it's, this podcast, this massive, beautiful podcast that I have the honor of publishing every single week is just one of the things that I do. It's a ton of work, booking, recording, post-producing, following up. It's a lot of work, but it's important to me, and it is part of my life and the effectiveness that I hang my hat on because I can help people also achieve these sorts of things because I'm doing it myself. So yeah, I really appreciate you pointing that out.
Most definitely. I mean, I really look at you as an amazing coach because you're an amazing biohacker. You're an amazing mind hacker. You're an amazing spirit hacker. And all of these different techniques that you come up with, you've actually had personal experience and you've gone through successes and failures to be able to make them happen. You want to make sure that the person you work with has gone through not just successes, but failures to make sure their successes in the future are sustainable. So I think this is really, really important. I mean, but just pulling us back a second here, back to the point of really moving forward and making your goals. I mean, one of the things that people do to be able to make goals is they make decisions on what to do, what not to do, how to move forward, so on and so forth. And I remember a point that you once brought up to me, and I said, wow, I guess that's pretty cool, because you're a major hacker, okay? You said that you could hack decision-making and make decision-making many times more effective. What do you mean by hacking decision-making?
Yeah, this is something that I like to talk about because it's both complex and simple. One thing that you can ask yourself, as you're making these decisions to better your life in 2019 and to move forward, one thing that it's just a little mantra, it's a question that you can ask yourself throughout the day. And this is something that I do many, many times during the day. When I'm making a decision, whether it's a donut or staying up late to work on a thing or raising my voice at my children, I ask myself this question, and now it happens in an instant, but I ask myself this question: does this serve my highest purpose? Does this donut serve my highest purpose? Sometimes it does. I mean, if you need a little joy, you need a little boost, and it's fun and it's the right, cool. When you ask yourself that specific question, does this serve my highest purpose? You will get an intuitive response inside your being that either will say, probably not, or yes, absolutely, go for it. This is necessary. Do it. This does serve your highest purpose. This begs the question, what if I don't know what my highest purpose is? And one way to think about this is sort of your idealized self. This is the best possible version of you in the moment. This is the optimal you. And so asking yourself, does this serve my highest purpose, will create this sort of intuitive connection inside your body where your gut feeling, your inner voice can say, no, this is not, do not eat that donut. Or, yes, you should stay up late because you'll get a lot done and, it will keep you in a good flow. So that's one way to hack sort of the decision-making process. And I encourage everybody to try that out. Like, as soon as you hear this, just put it in the back of your mind for the next time, you feel like flipping someone off in traffic. Like, does this serve my highest purpose? No. Is this going to elevate my cortisol levels and stress me out and set me on fire? Well, then don't do it. Duh. The other sort of classic ways for decision making is you have to write stuff down. You really do, because you can sit there and stew and pontificate. And one thing that I found with a lot of my clients is when they make decisions, these are people who are high performing, they're driven, successful, happy. Well, not always, but what they do, especially for highly intelligent people, which I believe everyone listening to this probably is that you can sort of talk yourself in and out of anything. You can intellectualize the decisions that you're making in your life, and you can either talk yourself into something cool or talk yourself out of something cool, something that's really going to serve you, something that's going to really make you a better person. And one thing that helps is to just do the classic Benjamin Franklin T-chart where the pros and cons are on different sides, and then you write them out. There's a power in getting it out of your brain. You have to write stuff down because then you can see it and you can't trick yourself. It's harder to BS yourself into or out of decisions if you're just sitting there thinking about it while you're scrolling through Instagram. Like, that's not effective decision making. You have to spend a little bit of time. Another thing too is, and this is something that I talk about a lot, but since this is sort of my coming out, this is sort of like my coming out life coach podcast.
You're coming out.
Yeah. So meditation is critical. The reason meditation helps in decision making is because when you can develop a meditative practice that allows just a little bit of buffer between external stimuli and your response to it. When you can widen that gap between external stimuli, somebody saying something to you or whatever, something maybe a little bit more complex, when you can widen that moment between somebody says something and then you react, when you meditate, you open up that gap. You expand that space where you can think more measuredly, more clearly, and also apply it to whether or not this is in your best, serving your highest purpose, being your best self. So when you meditate, you're actually creating new neural connections in your brain. You're lowering your heart rate and your cortisol levels. You're having time and space to literally think. And when you meditate, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do it over the top, but even just 10 minutes a day. I've pointed a lot of people toward Headspace because I feel like that's probably the most popular and the most effective for a lot of people, because it gives you sort of a 10-day trial period that I've found most effective. There's also Oak. Sam Harris just released a new a new meditation app. But meditating daily, just to clear your mind, will give you such a power in your decision making that you probably don't even know is possible. You probably don't have a frame of reference for, oh my gosh, I can see this thing for what it is, and I can think more clearly. I'm going to make this decision because I've cultivated a practice in my mind and in my meditative and my conscious state that will allow me to see things more clearly.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important because basically speaking, so many people live a life of reaction as opposed to proaction. And that's a big, big problem that we have out there. Did you ever see like two really, really smart people who, have PhDs or whatever, or just they're really smart, you look up to them, and they get into a really bad argument with each other? It seems like their IQs go down by 50%. Reactivity just steals us of all of the great, beautiful gifts that we have in intelligence and wisdom. There are so many things that steal that from us within our environment and the way we react to it. I know that you have this really great, what's known as the McCormick's Moon Fast to kick off the year. So you can sort of like push away that garbage and really move forward super clean in the new year. Tell us about the McCormick's Moon Fast.
Yeah, the McCormick's Moon. It's not my moon, but it is my fast. It's everybody's.
I thought it was your moon, dude. I'm sorry.
It's everybody's moon.
All right.
So this is something that I've been developing for the last couple of years. It's really simple, and this is something that I've blogged about. And when I talk about it, people really respond to it. It's been really effective as just sort of resetting your systems. Luckily, there is a new moon on January 5th, and on January 5th is an excellent time to really kickstart your year. So in a minute, Adam, I'll let you talk a little bit about the moon, its phases, its power and influence in our life, its undeniability. But essentially, this is how it works. For one full moon cycle, whether you want to get esoteric and mystical about why a moon cycle, we can. But practically, one moon cycle is a perfect amount of time for us to reset. And because of my meditation practice and my passion for recovery and sensory deprivation tanks and helping people like just recalibrate their systems, this is an excellent amount of time to do that. So here's what you do. No drugs, no alcohol, no, if you can, work on negative self-talk. And if you want actual fasting, our listeners understand intermittent fasting, to introduce a sort of cleansing of yourself, a cleansing of your life, of your mind, of your body, of your spirit. And the way that it works is that when you stick to this and you say, okay, for one whole moon cycle, I'm not going to drink any alcohol. I'm not going to smoke any weed. I'm not going to use any tobacco. I'm not going to, you could even introduce I'm not going to cuss. I'm not going to masturbate. I mean, sex is probably okay, you know, in if, especially if you're not masturbating, and this may sound vulgar, but flat out, especially for guys, it's a major problem. It's a major problem for so many men. It's messing with so many different aspects of our mind and of our lives. Is to just abstain, to do this moon fast for one full moon cycle. And the way that it applies in nutrition is if you needed an excuse or a launching point to quit sugar or to stop sugar, this is the opportunity to do that. No sugar, no flour, no drugs and alcohol, no self-pleasure, for a full moon cycle. Another part of it, which is harder to do, is screens and media. You know, for those of us who have tinkered around with this before, it's not easy. But when you abstain, just quit Facebook. Just take Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. Just take it off your phone for a month. It's not going to go anywhere. Your account will still be there when you're done. But when you abstain also, when you take a media fast, a social media fast, you'll find that everything kind of goes back to harmony in your mind. You're not thinking about what other people are eating or where they're going or what charities they're donating to. That's a good thing, but there's just a ton of them now. Mm-hmm. When you make the commitment to do it for just one full moon cycle, in these different areas, you find who you really are again. You get back to your essence. You get back to the meat and potatoes, or if you're vegan, the lentils and bean sprouts of who you are in your life. You know yourself a little bit better when you're not distracted from those things, from drugs and alcohol, from self-pleasure, from exorbitant amounts of time on Netflix or Facebook. And after the moon fast, you're going to feel more like yourself than you have in a very long time.
I think what you're talking about there is very important, especially since I believe you do start this on the new moon, right?
That's correct.
There's a lot of history, both within mysticism, and there's a lot of data out there in science, which clearly points that these moon cycles actually have effects on everything from your mental state to your physiology to your biology. I mean, the moon cycles themselves affect women's menstrual cycles.
Yeah.
There is so much that has been done within history, not only within different forms of spirituality, but in the way that we farm as well, which clearly says the moon has an effect on it. And a new moon classically is the blank slate. It's the way you start out your vision for the month. And since you're starting out the vision for the month and for the year, the way you start something forms the trajectory of what your outcomes will be during the year. So I applaud this type of approach, because if we can start clean, and I mean clean, I mean McCormick Moonfast clean, okay, starting out in January, then the rest of the year is going to head in that glorious trajectory. Yeah. And that's marvelous.
Well, and there happens to be a new moon on January 5th. So if you catch this before the 5th, try it. Just try it. Trust me. It will not be easy. It may be challenging. It will be challenging, especially if you love sugar and Facebook. It's going to be a challenge for you, but this is your life. This is your life, and to take control of this in a way, and civilizations that have been operating and understood the power of the moon from the Arabs and the Christians and the Hindus. Like we are, it's undeniable. There are moon cycles. There are certain powers therein. And when you abide by it, when you really stick to it and you get through it, man, you feel like $1 million at the end of this, the McCormick Moon Fast. Yeah.
I'm going for that one. I'm looking forward to the 5th.
Nice.
Hey, I've been really looking forward to doing this interview with you as well. There's so much great information. One of the things that always gets in people's ways is negative thoughts, though. I mean, they seem to be the sort of landmines on your route to your divine journey. and your outcome of really pairing yourself up with where your soul truly desires that you be. Okay, these negative thoughts seem to derail us. You have this term that you use a lot with your clients, called reversing ants. I know it has nothing to do with spraying down deadly pesticides. What is an ant, an A-N-T, and how do you reverse it?
Yeah, so an ANT stands for automatic negative thoughts. And this is like life coaching, personal development 101. Some of you are familiar with this and some of you are hearing this for the first time. These are debilitating. And many of us have these. Many of us don't even think about it because it's so automatic that when we step out a little bit past our comfort zone, these automatic negative thoughts come in, and they come in different forms. So one form is all or nothing thinking. All or nothing. I can't believe I had that cupcake. I failed my diet. I'm a failure. Okay, I'm gonna have 7 cupcakes now. That's one automatic negative thought. Another one is overgeneralization. So you can you sort of conclude that an unpleasant experience will lead to a negative future. So I didn't get that raise that I thought I would. I'll never get the raise. No one appreciates me. My job sucks. I hate it. And then you're totally defeated. That's another automatic negative thought. Another one is magnification. So this takes some sort, like in an example of like human interaction. If you have self-doubt, if you have automatic negative thoughts about how you show up in social situations, you say one wrong thing and then you magnify that little thing that you said that kind of came out sideways, which people didn't even notice and don't really care. But then you magnify that to everything. Man, I said that wrong. Oh, I'm so stupid. People think I'm dumb. Nobody's going to be my friend. All is lost. Like when you magnify these little things in your life and just extrapolate them outward from there, it spreads like a virus, and then it just becomes this negative framework that's kind of hard to dig your way out of. There's a couple more. There's like emotional reasoning, which is kind of interesting because this takes an emotional state that you feel. This kind of ties back to meditation, but it takes an emotional state that you feel like, oh, I feel anxious. And it's maybe a fleeting feeling that you have. I'm trying to better myself, but I feel anxious. Oh man, if I feel anxious, oh man, then that must mean that everything is going wrong. There's something to this. Man, I'm anxious, and now this is wrong, and now I'm anxious about this and that and that. And when you meditate, you're creating a new practice in your life, a new way of being that doesn't keep you tied to your thoughts. You are not your thoughts, and you are not your emotions. And when those emotions come up, like they do for everybody, when you take that emotion and extrapolate it to your life and reason around that thing, like, oh man, I feel anxious, so now I'm just a mess. I'm just going to go back to bed. And then the last one, one of the last ones that I think is big for people is should statements. Using should statements to motivate your behavior can leave you feeling really frustrated and anxious again. So I should return all those work emails. I should go to the gym. I should. That keeps you limited. And those should statements that sometimes don't even come from us, but those should statements may come from our upbringing, our mothers, our fathers. That's where the shoulds come from. Those shoulds statements are ways to keep you in a box. And so when you notice yourself saying, "Oh, I should go out and clean the garage," well, you could go out and clean the garage. You have a garage. That's cool. You have an opportunity to organize. But instead of saying I should go clean the garage, to reframe it in a way that doesn't like tie you to it is really liberating. So those are the sort of different common automatic negative thoughts. And the way to combat that, first and foremost, absolutely, is meditation. And I won't harp on that anymore, but it will develop superpowers within you. Some other ways to deal with these automatic negative thoughts is to know yourself and know where you're triggered, to figure out like what sorts of comments from others, what sorts of situations in my life trigger these automatic negative thoughts. Because when you notice that you're doing it, that's the first step to correcting it. So there's some other ways that you can deal with these automatic negative thoughts. Getting up and moving, changing your physical state. Minding your body so that you're not sitting there in a chair stewing, getting stressed out, and feeling this self-loathing. You can create a mantra. You can go back to, does this serve my highest purpose? There's lots of other tools there. Adam, I'm curious about you. Do you have any ways that you like to, or that you've helped others kind of deal with their automatic negative thoughts?
Actually, and interestingly enough, I used a technique which is based on the same technology behind Bose noise reduction earphones. Okay. Huh. It's really interesting. Most people don't know how the noise reduction earphones actually work. They actually emit the opposite sound of the sound they're trying to get rid of. So if you've ever seen a picture of a sound like on an oscilloscope where it shows wavelengths and stuff like that, where it goes up and it goes down like a wavelength. Okay. This machine actually makes the opposite, where it goes down then up. Okay. And when you put both of them together, the first noise and the opposite noise, it flattens them both out, so there's no noise anymore. Do you know that same technology can be used in regards to thoughts? Okay? If all of a sudden you see an individual who's walking down the street 100 yards away from you even, who is wearing tattered clothes, he's very, very, seems very dirty from the distance, he's hobbling, he's carrying paper bags that look like they're filled with garbage, he looks like the consummate homeless person, then all of a sudden certain senses kick off and certain judgments kick off. It's a certain thought about that person. You can literally, even though you're so far away from, you can smell the urine from the individual, and you have this feeling about that individual as a thought, like one of those automatic negative thoughts. What I do is I tell people to think at the same time the possible positive aspect. Maybe this gentleman is actually a billionaire, part of a billionaire club, and they only wear used clothing. In addition to that, in the bags, it's filled with books that he's gotten from his library and all his other billionaire friends' libraries, where he's going to be taking it now to a school to read stories to homeless children, okay? And he's brilliant. He's a conversationalist beyond belief. Put both of those together, and guess what happens? You have no decision on the person. Yeah. And from that moment forward, you can choose to create what your thoughts are. Remember, your life is either a reaction or a proaction. It's your choice. If we look at stimulus around us, or we look at our negative thoughts and we react to them, it's our choice. We choose what we think. Sometimes it creates work to be able to do that. But most of all, I think, and I'm going to bring this up one more time, I think it creates a good team of people around you. Don't be around negative people.
Yes.
Okay. Get yourself a good coach who knows what the heck he or she is doing. Okay. And you have to ask the question: what's your COI, which is cost of inaction, of not dealing with your ANTs, your automatic negative thoughts? Yeah. Okay. Think about your life right now. If you didn't have any negative thoughts, or especially automatic negative thoughts about things, if you thought this entire globe that you're on, this existence, this life, was your oyster to be able to turn into oysters Rockefeller or have it raw on the half shell with a little bit of horseradish, okay? It's all your choice. And the bottom line is what is your cost of inaction in not taking these choices, in just being a reaction to your environment? Find yourself a coach. Every good person out there who's been successful in their life, in balancing the different quadrants of life, found themselves a coach, because you only know what you know. Now it's time to be able to take on another perspective and move forward.
That is an excellent point. What's something that's big and becoming more and more popular and just sort of common, performance talk is you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Ah, yeah.
Right. I mean, and And it's true, and it's harsh. And if you are spending lots of time before work, after work, maybe even people in your home who are negative as a default, who are pessimistic, who don't see the best in you, who want to play small, they want to keep you in the category that they see you in, it's going to be really, really hard to grow. You're right. And so finding people that you are drawn to, that you're called to, that you vibe with, that are also doing cool things that you're like, man, I really like what they're doing. Yeah, finding them, connecting with them. And one thing that I want to point out too is, especially for those of us like you and myself who are of service, we are here to help people. We are here to help humanity and usher in a new way of being on the planet. And that is true. That is not an overstatement. We are often really willing to help people. We want people to reach out. So if someone hears this and they're motivated and they're like, man, you're speaking a lot of sense, Sean. Man, that was cool. I really like the way that you were thinking about this thing. Like, reach out to me. Reach out to the people that you really respect and appreciate, who are positive and motivated, because just making that one connection sort of changes your average a little bit, because you can feed off of that positive energy a little bit and use it in your life. Yeah, that's great, Adam.
Well, this begs the question at this point. How does someone reach out to you, Sean?
I gave you a softball to give me another softball. Yeah, the best way to find me is SeanMcCormick.com. That's SeanMcCormick, SeanMcCormick.com. That's my website. It has blogs. It has some of my theory, all the things that I do. Not all of things, some of the things that I do. That's the best way to get a hold of me. It's Coach Sean McCormick on Instagram. Connect with me. Send me a DM. You can also email me, Sean, Sean, at naturalstacks.com if you want to stay in this universe a little bit. Yeah, I'm super available, and I'm here to help. Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Well, I think the thing is that everybody out there in the audience has something that they were meant to do.
Yes.
And the more outward and the more forward they are in telling people about this, the more they're able to serve, create, and offer healing to the world and the people around them. So, something, there is no such thing as a shameless plug, especially with the type of work you're doing and the help that you help people with. One area that I sort of want to finish up on here is, I once said to you, and it was really interesting. You gave me a little bit of schooling on this one, and I'll take it. It's all good. I said to you, yeah, well, life is all about the balance of the 4 categories of your life. You know what I mean? And it sort of feels from that position like, you got to juggle things. All right. But you said, no, Adam, your life is all about the synergy of the 4 categories of your life. Okay. Can you talk about these categories and how you work with people to make them synergistic, and what happens when people are out of balance and not using them synergistically with each other?
Yeah. The way that I think of it, in the way that has been really effective for my clients, is to think of your life in these 4 categories: your mind, your body, your spirit, and your work. And we all know people who are highly intelligent and really great workers, hard workers, successful people. It's likely that we know people who are strong in their mind and strong in their work, but potentially imbalanced with their body and their spirit. We also know people who are very spiritual. We know them, whether they're, devout Christians or, involved or interested in sort of the new thought movement. They're very spiritual, and their bodies are a temple, and they're doing yoga 7 days a week, but their work is not there. Their ability to do good work is not being tended to, and their mental frameworks, the way that they think and the way that they operate, is not as sharp. So balance, synergy between these 4 categories will bring you the life that you want. And of course, mind is a broad brush, right? Mind not only deals with how you talk to yourself, how you organize your day, whether or not you meditate, but mind also encapsulates some of these coaching practices that I do with clients to dig a little bit deeper into the seven areas of your life, in with the wheel of balance, or reframing automatic negative thoughts. These sort of coaching frameworks get into your subconscious mind so that you can operate from a place of knowing. Are you taking are you taking supplements to increase your memory and your cognition? Like the mind is a vast sea that we can spend a lot of time in, but I think people get it. And then the body is obvious. What do you eat? Do you move? Are you getting enough nutrients that you need? Again, this can be tended to with high intensity interval training, which is something that I'm obviously a giant fan of. Supplementation, intermittent fasting, all of these different things serve to nourish your body in that category of your life. Now, spirit is some folks are going to recoil a little bit, but hear me out. So whether you are atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, whatever, you have a physical body, that's for sure, but you also have a non-physical body. You have an essence of yourself. You have a spirit. And there are lots of different ways to nourish and grow your spirit, to connect with your spirit. If you want to call spirit your intuition, fine, that's cool with me. There are ways to develop your spirit in so that when you are connecting inwardly with yourself, you have a sense of peace, you have a sense of knowing, and it allows you to have a greater appreciation for yourself in your life. I'm not saying you got to go to church every Sunday from here on out. That's not necessarily nourishing the spirit. It could, but that's not what I'm saying. Some of this is meditation. Some of this is connection with your intuitive self. And I have practices and techniques that I work with my clients to really connect connect inwardly. And Adam, I know that you have lots of different cool techniques that I'm learning and understanding. But the spiritual aspect of our lives, I think, is the one that is neglected the most. And that's because Netflix is awesome. And that's because it is. It's because we're distracted, and it's because we're more concerned with what Kelly had for dinner than we are with sitting quietly with ourselves to figure out like who we are on the inside. So that's the third category. And then work. It doesn't necessarily mean your career, but it can, obviously. It could also mean like nourishing hobbies that give you a sense of community, that give you a sense of purpose, that give you a sense of to do and go for. A lot of us, unfortunately, are in jobs and careers that we're not happy with, or jobs and careers that we've been happy with but are no longer happy in. And maybe we're plateauing or having doubts about what we want to do when we grow up. It's okay not to know what you want to be when you grow up. It's not fixed in that way. But there are ways to make sure that you're approaching your work with direction and showing up in a way that will bring you more opportunity. That's the big thing with the work, is what are you doing in your work day to day that's going to bring you more opportunity for growth. And again, there are tools and practices that I work with people to help nourish, and they all work together. You can't be, an 8 out of 10 in body and spirit and a 4 out of 10 in mind and work and really live to your potential. You have to really nourish and often with the help of a coach or someone who's experienced and to help you in this way to live the sort of well-rounded life that will just keep getting better and better and better.
I think right now I speak to so many of my clients, and we're in a phase of transition. Everybody seems to feel it. Like you're saying before, many people are disillusioned with their jobs, or maybe even looking for a new mission in their life, even after they've been at something for a long time. And they're saying that there's something greater. I mean, many times we find ourselves asking what truly is our purpose here. Our purpose, our life purpose, is like this amazing, beautiful treasure chest that's covered in gold and filled in gold, but it's 20 feet down, and sometimes digging for it and finding it and doing that treasure hunting can seem like a daunting task. But always remember one thing, that two people digging a ditch and finally getting that gold is one heck of a lot easier than one person, especially when one of those people has expertise in doing it. So I really implore anybody listening right now that if you are going to make one decision to allow you to get rid of your automatic negative thoughts, to allow you to move forward, to make you accountable, to really allow you to run on all four categories of your life, from your mind to your body, to your spirit, to your life mission and work, to be able to do all that right, find a coach, not just any coach, but a coach who's able to help you with things like business, things like your body, things like your mind, like your spirit, who has success records in all of those areas. Make that your choice for the new year. And you know something, I don't mean to put you on the line here, Sean, but I'm going to say one thing, because I know Sean will follow through and do this. If you reach out to Sean at seanmccormick.com, if he doesn't feel he can help you, because he's very straightforward, sometimes he says, I'm not an expert in that area. If he doesn't feel like he can help you, he will find you someone who can. Is that something I can promise of you?
Yeah.
I have you promise?
Absolutely. Adam, I do it all the time. For folks that are dealing with stuff that's not in my wheelhouse. Yeah, absolutely. I'll find somebody. I mean, yeah, I have a vast network of coaches and mentors and healers and intuits that will help whatever it is that you're going through. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. I know that you've always been a major fan of the three things that human beings, three divine things human beings do, which is to heal, to create, and to serve. Your conscience and the way you deal with yourself with charity and other purposes has really inspired me. So I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, allowing me to interview you, as opposed to you being the interviewer.
This was fun. Hopefully people are taking notes and following up with this. We just laid out a lot of different information. This was pretty jam packed, and it was fun because a lot of people listen to this podcast. Tens of thousands of people monthly, and they know me as the podcast host. They know me as a Natural Stacks expert, and I think that some of them know that I do coaching at the level that I do. But this has given me a really cool opportunity to sort of introduce myself in this way, and this is timely. This is the time in the year where all of us are like, okay, let's make this a great year. Let's make positive decisions. Let's follow frameworks, and let's think about the things that are going to move the needle for us. And I'm really glad that you agreed that you agreed to interview me today, Adam. Before we close this thing out, I'd love for you to be able to explain how people can get in contact with you, because I'm sure that there's lots of people that are like, who's this Adam guy? I like him. How can they find you?
Well, you can find me in two different ways. The first way you can find me is by actually going to www.theadamharman show.com, and that's my radio show in Los Angeles. You're going to see great individuals on there, from Teal Swan to Dr. Eric Pearl, Judith Orlin. We're all of these top writers and top people in the field of either medicine or spirituality. So you can go there. That's theadamharmanshow.com. The second thing is how I actually help clients. I help clients with a combination of psychology, quantum physics, and also mysticism, because ever since the age of 7, and I have to say this, even though I'm well respected in the field of functional medicine as a lecturer, I've also been an intuitive. So I've combined all of these three things together, both science and mysticism, to help individuals find their life goals. And you can see that at paralleltimelinetherapy.com. So that's me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'll say it in front of everybody else. It's such an honor to be working with you, for you to be coaching me and mentoring me on this path. And I'd like to close out this episode with, usually in this case, you would be asking me, but I want to hear your answer to this question.
Sure.
And this is really just sort of like a fill in the blank, if you would, and take as much time as you need on this. If you would please finish this sentence for me. Everyone should know that.
Everyone should know that they are meant for a divine purpose here on this planet. That their souls were meant to be able to come down here and first experience all of the amazing things that are offered here. And as a byproduct of that experiencing, we as human beings automatically manifest. Here's an example. If you were to show an artist, a painter, a fine artist, a beautiful sunset, they would be compelled to paint it. If you were to show an architect a beautiful piece of land, they would be compelled to get on their CAD machines on their computers and create a house. We as human beings, as human spirits, were meant first and foremost to experience. We are harvesters of experience. Manifestation is a secondary byproduct of experience. So with that in mind, please, the next time you say to yourself, oh, is it worth it for me to try that new experience? Push that to the side. Become an amazing and brave experiencer of your life. And with those experiences will come manifestations as an automatic byproduct of your human programming. And thank you, Sean.
Adam, thanks for joining us on the Optimal Performance Podcast.